So today I'm going to be talking about NativeScript, Angular, and how we can migrate our existing web applications using Angular to mobile applications using NativeScript. My name is Stanimira Vlaeva, and I'm a developer advocate at Progress. I work on the NativeScript team, and I'm also a GD for Angular and Web Technologies. If you want to reach out to me, the best way to do it is on Twitter. But I'm also available anywhere else, Facebook, LinkedIn, and so on. So what is this NativeScript thing I keep mentioning? It is a framework for building native Android and iOS applications using web technologies, such as JavaScript and some other familiar things from the web. Let's see a short overview of the architecture of the thing. On the bottom, of course, we have the underlying platforms, Android and iOS. Then we have a layer called the NativeScript runtimes. We have one runtime for Android and a different runtime for iOS. They provide us with native API access through JavaScript to the underlying platforms. For example, we can write the following code. We can create a new Android widget called button through JavaScript, and we can do the same thing for iOS. As you can see, we have two different extensions here. So this layer gives us the access to the platforms, but it doesn't give us anything cross-platform, right? That's why we have a layer on top that is written in JavaScript, and this is the NativeScript core modules. They allow us to write the same code for the two different platforms. It's basically an abstraction over the native APIs. So the way to do that is you can create a new button, and under the hood, the NativeScript core modules will create a button when you build for Android, and it's going to be a native Android button, and the same thing for iOS. And usually the way to do that in NativeScript is by writing some XML. Never mind the .html extension. We keep that so that it is kind of easier for the web developers who come and have background with writing web applications. So we have the .html extension. And for the application framework, you can choose from a bunch of things. You can use the NativeScript built-in application framework, which is very light and provides you with things like data bindings and navigation. And you can also choose from some of the more sophisticated solutions, such as Angular or Vue. Since recently, we also have support for Svelte and React. And today, we're going to be focusing on Angular, actually. So if you want to use Angular in your NativeScript application, you usually have to write the template, the HTML kind of template for your applications, and you can use everything from Angular there. So you can have text bindings and also event bindings, for example. So the first two rows are Angular specific things that you can use out of the box in Angular, in NativeScript, sorry. So everything that is related to the structure of your application, such as modules, components, and directives and stuff like that, you can just use it. We have an extension for the two other rows. So we have a NativeScript router for the Angular router, and we have NativeScript HTTP client, which also extends the default web HTTP client. We have NativeScript forms module for the forms. We also support the DSL for building animations with Angular within NativeScript, and they actually translate to native Android and iOS animations under the hood. But you're building them as a developer using the Angular way of building animations. We also support internationalization, and we kind of support the Angular CLI. We're going to be using some part of it today inside our NativeScript applications. So we're going to skip the game today because we don't really have the full setup. But I have socks, so you can come to me and ask questions afterwards, and you can get some socks. They're kind of limited edition, so better be quick. So how does a web and mobile project look like? We actually have a couple of strategies that we recommend to the people. The first one is to have your project and have a libs directory which contains all the shared functionalities. So basically you're extracting your business logic in some shared library. You don't have to publish that on npm, although you can do it, but you just separate that in a different directory. And then you have an apps folder where you have your web and your mobile project. And the trick here is that you can have multiple web projects and multiple mobile projects, and they use the shared library and have their own platform-specific things inside, such as the user interface. A good solution to this kind of pattern is Xplot. Xplot is a library that is built on top of NX, which is another solution built for monorepos for Angular. And the cool thing about Xplot is that it doesn't only support NativeScript or Angular for the web, but it also supports Ionic and Electron. So you can have a whole lot of projects inside a single workspace. The different strategy that I'm actually going to be showing you today is by having everything in the same project. And the NativeScript files are just specified by this naming convention, and they end in .tns.ts or .tns.html or .tns.anything you want. So you have everything in the same directory and just have separate files for the different platforms. For example, this is not really nice, but let's say that you see what's there. Cool. We have a movie service, some import over here. And if you build your application for the web, this is gonna pick up the movie service.ts file, which is the usual file that you will want to pick up. And if you build for NativeScript, the NativeScript build actually resolves this file to movieservice.tns.ts. So if there is a file on the file system which has a TNS extension, the import gets resolved to that file. Simple as that. And you can do the same thing for template URLs or style URLs or any kind of imports in your application. So if you have a app component HTML and build for web, it's gonna pick up the app component HTML file. And if you build for NativeScript, again, it's gonna pick up the file with the TNS extension. Simple as that. So in the import, you write the common file, and then when the application is built, depending on the platform, one of the two options get picked up. And a very easy way to migrate your web project to a shared NativeScript and web project is by using the NativeScript schematics. We actually joined our efforts with the Angular team to build this library, and it is a kind of an extension of the default Angular schematics. It provides a way to migrate your application and to also generate different things. It's quite similar to what Yonder showed earlier with ng@pwa, but it is kind of the same thing for mobile, for NativeScript. But before doing that, let's discuss what can we share inside our shared project. If you have some services or libraries that don't depend on the DOM or don't depend on any of the Android and iOS APIs, we can share them. For example, NGRX is quite shareable. It doesn't have to do anything with the browser or Android or iOS, so we can just share our stores and our business logic and use that. We can also share routing configurations. As I mentioned, the NativeScript router is an extension of the default Angular router. It doesn't limit you in any way, so you can share your routing configuration or you can just extend it. Although you have to be careful with that because on mobile you usually may want to have different navigation strategies, and you have to be careful what you want to share here. You can also share the component classes as long as they don't have anything, again, platform specific inside them. We cannot share platform specific services and Eng modules and plugins. A very common example is the Angular material library, because it is kind of using some DOM APIs over there, so you cannot use Angular material in NativeScript. But we do have a set of UI components that are built specifically for the mobile platforms, and you can use them. You cannot use the same user interface layer. So in NativeScript, we're using XML, as I mentioned earlier, and we have our set of user interface components and a different layouting system compared to the browser. And you're not using HTML. So most probably, or yeah, probably, you'll have to rewrite your user interface layer when converting your web application to mobile application. All right, this is, yeah, actually, we will play that game for sure. So the question is, can we share this file? And if you have, so yeah, can we share the file between web and mobile? If you have the right answer, you can raise your hand, and if you guess correctly, you're going to win some socks, and they're very nice. Cool. Anyone? Can we share? Yeah? Okay, why? Yep, correct. Cool. Yeah, I'm just gonna share. Okay. I'm just gonna repeat that for the recording. We can share that because we're just using observables and generic JavaScript libraries. We don't have anything related to the UI or anything like that, so it is quite shareable. So this is an example of a shareable service. Can we share that file over here? We have an Angular component with some template URLs, style URLs, and some input inside it. Yeah? Why do you think we can share it? Okay. And mhm. What do you think about the template URLs and the style URLs? Mm, that is one opinion about the template URLs and style URLs. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see what is the answer. We have two different opinions here. So you can, yeah, you can actually share that. Uh, yeah, let's see. Because actually the template URL, when you build for NativeScript, it is gonna pick up the hint component.tns.html file. So it is a tricky question, because if such file doesn't exist, it's gonna pick up the HTML file and it's not gonna work. So it's kind of yes and no. So I can give socks to both of you. Thank you. Okay, once again, just to make sure this is clear, in the imports, we write the generic import, the generic specifier without the extension. And if we have a platform-specific file, it's going to be picked up when we build the application for NativeScript. If we don't have it, it's going to pick up the generic web file, and this is going to break the application buffer, probably. If we have that, it might be compilable, it might not be compilable, because if we're just trying to use HTML, it's going to compile, it's going to show a blank screen. But if we have an import from a TypeScript file, which uses some, I don't know, web API like Material or whatever, it is going to break the build because we don't have the library available. Yeah, cool. Thank you. And finally, can we share this HTML file here? Any opinions? We have an image tag with some source and some height. Okay, cool. So the answer is no, we cannot share it. We have to use a different markup language. And again, it's important to have the right extension as well. So yeah, thank you. You can get one more pair of socks if you want afterwards. Cool, thank you. Next, how can we get started converting our existing web application? Well, the easiest way, as I said, is by using the NativeScript schematics package. To use it, you need the Angular CLI installed globally and also the NativeScript CLI. Then you have to go to your project and type ng at nativescript/schematics. This is going to add a bunch of files to your project that contain a minimal mobile application. And you can then run the mobile application by using the NativeScript CLI and the TNS preview command. The TNS preview command actually is going to output a barcode, and then you have to install a mobile application on your phone and scan that QR code. So when you scan the QR code, you're going to see the initial mobile application. So you don't have to do any other local setup, which is quite convenient because when developing NativeScript applications, usually you need the full Android or iOS setup, depending on the platform you're building for. But with TNS Preview, you can use a limited functionality of NativeScript just to try out converting your web applications. And when it comes to actually writing production code or publishing your app, you can do the normal Android setup. So you can try it out. Cool. So what happens when we see the application? We don't have anything really beautifully looking. We have a big button which says auto-generate works, and it is clickable. I guarantee that. But it doesn't do anything else. It doesn't look anything like our existing web application. And we have to convert it step by step from now on. Let's say that we have in our application an app routing module. So in the app routing module, we have a set of routes. We have just a single route here, which by default leads to our route component, which is called game component. It's pretty simple. And if we take a look at the app routing module for NativeScript with the .tns extension, we have an auto-generate component that was set up for us by the ng-add command. So what we need to do to convert it is actually just remove the auto-generate component at all and enter the game component. And if we run the app again, we actually don't have to run it. It can keep running in the command line. It's just going to update when we save the file. What we're going to see is pretty much nothing, a blank screen. Once again, as we saw earlier, thank you for that, we don't actually have the NativeScript markup for that game component yet. We haven't done anything to convert it. This is why the build picks up the HTML file, which contains some web user interface, but this web user interface doesn't work in NativeScript, so we see a blank screen. We don't see anything at all. So what we need to do is start converting the game component and the user interface for it. And there is another schematic that can help us with that. We have to execute ng migrate component and specify the name of the component that we want to convert. This will actually create a blank TNS HTML file and also update all the necessary NativeScript files to make sure that this component is included in the NativeScript build. And when the app refreshes, we will see some random text that was auto-generated. This text comes from the game component TNS HTML file that was generated. We have a simple stack layout here. It doesn't really matter what is over there. You can't see it anyway. But we have a couple of labels which kind of translate to paragraph tags. And we have a stack layout. The stack layout just says that every element inside should be positioned one after the other, by default vertically. Cool. The thing that we need to do right now is just write the mobile user interface for that component. So we have an h1 tag over here and an ng template. For NativeScript, we can keep the ng template because it is something that is Angular specific. It is not coming from the DOM. And we will replace the h1 tag with an action bar. If you're wondering what is an action bar, is that thing over there. And we're binding the title property of the action bar to the title variable that is available in the code behind. So this is how we are replacing that part of the user interface. Later we have the image tag. As we saw earlier, we can replace it with an image or with a GIF element. And for the GIF element, it is important that you actually need a NativeScript plugin for that, because by default, Android and iOS don't support like just outputting GIFs. There's some additional configuration that you need to do to output GIF images. And we are again binding the source property in the same way to some code behind property. After that, we have a form, and we have some material design elements inside it. In NativeScript, we can cover that by using a stack layout and inputting a text field. This is just a NativeScript widget. You don't need to remember any of these. The purpose of this demo is just to show you how easy it is to convert the user interface. And after learning the basics of the NativeScript user interface, you can just start migrating your existing HTML. And finally, we have some div with an ngIf and some titles and buttons inside. In the same way, in NativeScript, we can place a stack layout by using the ngIf again, in the same way. And inside, we can use labels instead of h3 and so on. And the button, it looks pretty much the same. It is just a uppercase, camel case, whatever button. And we're binding to the tap event instead of the click event here. But it's the same. The rest of it is the same. Cool. And again, we don't really have that demo, but you can imagine that it is working. Cool. If you want to learn more about it, we have a documentation for NativeScript. The repo of the project is in GitHub, and if you want to just try out NativeScript, the easiest way is to go to the NativeScript playground on that URL and check it out. It doesn't require any local setup, so you can play around with it. Well, thank you, and if you have any questions, thanks. I can check Slido. We don't have any questions in... Oh, okay, we have some questions in Slido. Is there a statistic how many projects are written in NativeScript? I don't really have that statistic available, but yeah, probably there is some. So you can drop me an email or write to me on Twitter and I'll dig it up. A good place to find NativeScript project is the nativescript.org website, and we have some showcase applications over there, like a bunch of them from companies like Puma or some others. But yeah, thank you for the question. I don't have that statistic with me, but if you reach out after that, I can give you the answer. Can you use Jetpack while developing in NativeScript? I'm not familiar what is Jetpack. Is that something country specific? Whoever asked that question, yeah? Yeah. If it is an Android library, you probably can use it. You can use quite a lot of available Android and iOS libraries inside NativeScript, but I have to check for this one specifically. So yeah, again, I can check and follow up on that question. But thank you. Are there any plans for TNS HTML to HTML transpire or vice versa? No, we don't really have plans to do that because yeah, usually the user interface that you want to write for mobile is quite different, and you want to position the elements in a different way than how you do them, how you position them on web. So we haven't really thought about writing transpilers from and to HTML. But yeah, thank you for the question. And finally, can the NativeScript tags be extended to suit specific needs, include specific fields or data binding, etc.? Yeah, you can build your other NativeScript components and widgets, and you can also extend the existing ones. We have such libraries. We have a pretty big marketplace for NativeScript, and we have tons of plugins over there. And yeah, you can definitely extend the existing components. Thank you. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Thank you.